Okay, so imagine you're at a party, right? And someone just casually mentions the word tennis. You know what happens next, right? Everyone's suddenly a tennis expert, and the debate erupts, who is the Goki?
Oh, yeah. The greatest of all time debate.
Exactly. Is it Federer? Nadal? Or maybe someone else entirely?
Well, get ready to drop some serious knowledge bombs because...
We're about to go deep on Novak Djokovic.
Oh, this is going to be good.
We're talking his whole journey from growing up in war-torn Serbia to absolutely dominating the tennis world.
We've got his Wikipedia page and the Britannica bio.
And we're going to unearth all the stats and stories that will make you the most interesting person at your next tennis party.
All right, let's do this.
So first things first, let's rewind the clock back to 1987.
Okay.
Belgrade, Serbia. That's where Novak's story begins.
Not exactly the most peaceful setting.
Right. I mean, imagine trying to perfect your serve with bombs going off around you.
Talk about pressure.
Seriously, I can't even imagine. That experience must have had a profound impact on his mental toughness.
Oh, absolutely. You don't develop that kind of resilience and focus by accident. It's forged in those challenging moments.
It really makes you wonder if those early years in a war-torn environment played a part in his ability to stay so calm and collected on the court, even in the most intense matches.
I think it definitely played a role. It's like that early exposure to adversity gave him this incredible mental fortitude.
Yeah, like he developed this inner strength that just couldn't be broken.
Exactly. And, it wasn't just the external pressures he faced. His family made some incredible sacrifices to support his tennis dreams.
Oh, right. His parents took out those high-interest loans to fund his training.
Yeah, talk about a huge weight on a young player's shoulders.
That's a lot of pressure to live up to.
Djokovic has actually talked about how that experience shaped him. He said having to play with that kind of financial burden really pushed him to learn how to thrive under pressure.
Wow. So in a way, it's like those early challenges prepared him for the pressure cooker of professional tennis.
It's almost like his origin story as a superhero.
Totally. Okay, so now let's fast forward to 2011. This was Djokovic's breakout year. And breakout in a huge way.
Oh yeah, 2011 was insane. It was like he flipped a switch and became this unstoppable force.
He won 3 out of the 4 Grand Slams that year, right?
Yep, 3, the Australian Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open.
And he also finally reached the not one ranking for the first time.
And let's not forget that crazy 43-match winning streak.
Come on, even tennis legends like Nadal and Sampras were in awe.
Sampras even said it was one of the best seasons he'd ever seen in tennis.
That's high praise.
Yeah.
So what happened in 2011? Was it just a sudden surge in talent, or was there something more to it?
Well, it was a confluence of factors, I think. He was definitely in peak physical condition, and he'd made a few key adjustments to his game that really elevated his performance.
So he upped his fitness game.
Big time. He started focusing more on nutrition and adopted a more disciplined training regimen, which gave him this incredible stamina on the court.
Makes sense. You need to be in top shape to win 3 Grand Slams in a single year.
Right. And it wasn't just about fitness. He also started hitting his shots with more precision and consistency, like he'd unlocked a new level of control.
So it was a combination of physical prowess and this newfound accuracy.
Yeah. And honestly, I think some of his rivals maybe weren't playing their absolute best that year, which kind of created the perfect storm for Djokovic's dominance.
Interesting. So a little bit of luck, maybe.
Maybe a little, but hey, you make your own luck, right?
True. Now, we can't forget that Djokovic achieved all this while proudly representing Serbia on the world stage.
Absolutely. He had opportunities to play for other countries. Remember, Great Britain was really hoping he'd become their next big star.
Yeah, they were desperate for someone to challenge the dominance of guys like Federer and Nadal.
Exactly. But Djokovic chose to stay true to his roots. He wanted to represent Serbia and inspire a nation that had been through so much.
It's like he became a symbol of national pride and resilience.
Exactly. And that decision, I think, made his victories even more meaningful for Serbian fans.
Okay, so let's talk about his playing style. Everyone always talks about how agile and flexible he is. Some people even call him Gumby because of how he can contort his body to hit these insane shots.
Oh yeah, his flexibility is definitely a key part of this game. It's almost like he's made of rubber. He can reach shots that most players wouldn't even dream of attempting.
I've seen clips of him sliding on hard courts like he's playing on clay. It's unbelievable.
It's incredible. But it's not just about flexibility, it's about how he uses it to generate power and create these unique angles that most players can't even come close to matching.
Right, it's not just about reaching the ball, it's about hitting it with power and precision from these crazy positions.
Exactly. He turns defense into offense in the blink of an eye.
And then there's that legendary return of serve. Some people argue it's the best in the history of tennis. It's like he has the sixth sense for where the ball is going.
It's almost like he can anticipate the serve before it's even hit. He's so good at neutralizing powerful swerves and turning them into attacking shots. It's like he flips the script on the server completely.
So he takes away one of the biggest weapons in tennis, the serve, and turns it into an advantage for himself.
Pretty much. And that's what makes him so difficult to beat. He can take your best shot and turn it into a weakness.
Okay, starting to see why people call him the GOAT. But what about his rivals like Federer and Nadal? How does he stack up against them?
Ah, the eternal debate.
Right.
Well, get this. Djokovic actually has a winning record against both of them. He consistently beats the guys who are also considered some of the greatest to ever play the game.
Wait, seriously? He's got a winning record against both Federer and Nadal.
Yep. Think about that for a second.
I mean, that's insane.
It is, and it really speaks to his dominance. But it's not just about head-to-head records. It's about how he's managed to stay at the top of the game for so long, competing against these absolute titans of tennis.
So how does he do it? What's his secret weapon against these guys?
I think it's a combination of factors. His return of serve is definitely a huge advantage. It neutralizes their serves and puts them on the defensive right away. But he's also incredibly adaptable.
Adaptable. How so?
He can switch up his game plan depending on who he's playing, the surface of the court, even the weather conditions.
So he's not just relying on one style of play?
Nope. He's like a tennis chameleon, blending in and then striking at just the right moment.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So we've got the physical skills, the mental toughness, the strategic brilliance.
Yeah.
But what about his personality? What's Novak Djokovic like off the court?
Well, he's definitely known for being a bit of a quirky guy.
Quirky how?
Well, he's got some pretty unconventional views, on health and science.
Really? Like what?
Well, he's really into meditation and the power of positive thinking, for example. And he's even said that he thinks emotions can actually change the structure of water molecules.
Okay, wait, hold on. Emotions changing the structure of water molecules.
Yeah. He said some pretty out there stuff.
I mean, I guess you could say he's not afraid to think outside the box.
Definitely not. And that kind of independent thinking, that willingness to challenge conventional wisdom, maybe that's part of what makes him so successful on the court.
Interesting. So it's like he's always looking for an edge, always pushing the boundaries.
Exactly. He's not afraid to try new things, experiment with his game, and see what works.
It's like he's constantly evolving.
Right. But those unconventional views, they haven't always been met with open arms, let's just say.
Yeah, especially when it comes to vaccines.
Oh, yeah, the vaccine controversy.
That was a big deal.
It really was. It sparked a ton of debate and even prevented him from playing in some major tournaments.
Yeah, he missed the Australian Open in 2022 because of his vaccination status.
Right. And the whole situation really divided public opinion on Djokovic.
Big time. Some people felt like he was being irresponsible and putting others at risk by not getting vaccinated.
And others, they supported his right to make his own choices about his health, even if they didn't agree with his decision.
It turned into this whole debate about personal freedom versus public health.
Yeah.
And the role of athletes as role models.
It did. It became bigger than just tennis.
So it wasn't just about disagreeing about vaccines. It was about these bigger societal issues.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what makes this whole Joey conversation so complex. You can't just look at his on-court accomplishments in isolation. You have to consider everything. The good, the bad, the controversial.
Right. It's all part of his story. But okay, let's shift gears back to tennis for a minute. You mentioned that Djokovic holds a winning record against both Federer and Nadal, which is still blowing my mind.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Can you break down those rivalries for us a bit? What makes them so special?
Well, each rivalry is unique, of course, but they all have this incredible intensity and mutual respect.
Yeah.
With Federer, it was really a clash of styles. You had the elegant all-court game of Federer versus Djokovic's relentless defense and ability to turn defense into offense.
It was like watching a chess match on the court.
Exactly. Each player trying to outmaneuver the other. And then with Nadal, it's this epic battle of physicality and mental toughness.
Nadal, the king of clay.
Right. And Djokovic, who's mastered all surfaces. They've pushed each other to their absolute limits time and time again. And their matches are just legendary.
I'm getting chills just thinking about some of those matches. They're always so intense.
They really are. So to answer your question about their head-to-head records, Djokovic actually leads both rivalries.
He does. What are the numbers?
He's 27-23 against Federer and 30-29 against Nadal.
Wow. Those are some incredibly tight margins.
They are, but those numbers only tell part of the story. These matches are always incredibly close, often going to 4 or 5 sets with momentum swinging back and forth.
Sounds exhausting.
Oh, it is. both for the players and the fans.
Okay, I have to ask, with all of these accomplishments, all these records, why is there even a debate about whether Djokovic is the Joket? I mean, it seems pretty clear-cut to me.
Well, it's not that simple. Some people argue that, he hasn't achieved the same level of cultural impact as Federer. Federer is often credited with bringing tennis to a wider audience.
True, Federer does have that undeniable star power. It's hard to deny that.
He does. And then there's the whole issue of sportsmanship.
Yeah.
Some people criticize Djokovic for his on-court behavior, getting frustrated with umpires arguing line calls.
Oh yeah, he's definitely had some outbursts.
He has. And some people feel like that kind of behavior, it tarnishes his image a bit.
I see. So it's not just about the wins and losses.
Right. It's about how you conduct yourself on and off the court. And I think for some people, those outbursts raise questions about his sportsmanship.
But isn't that just part of his competitive fire?
It could be. And his supporters would definitely argue that they'd say those outbursts are just a reflection of his passion for the game and his desire to win.
Right. It's like that raw emotion that drives him to be the best.
Exactly. So I think it's up to each individual to decide how much weight they give to those moments when they're evaluating his overall legacy.
So where do you stand on this whole Djokovic debate? Do you think Djokovic deserves the title?
Honestly, it's tough. He's got the stats, the records, the head-to-head wins against his biggest rivals, but there's also the baggage, the controversies, the questions about his off-court behavior. It's a complicated picture.
So you're saying it's not a simple yes or no answer?
Right. I think it ultimately comes down to your own personal criteria for what makes someone the greatest. Everyone has their own scorecard,
It's a good way to put it. We all have different values and priorities.
Exactly. And that's what makes this conversation so interesting. It's not just about who won the most matches. It's about the impact they had on the sport and the world.
Right. And speaking of impact, what do you think people will remember most about Novak Djokovic? What will be his lasting legacy?
I think he'll be remembered as one of the most complete and dominant players of all time, a master of all surfaces with an incredible ability to adapt his game to any situation. He'll be remembered for those epic battles with Federer and Nadal, for pushing the boundaries of what's possible on the court.
And for good or worse, I think he'll also be remembered for his outspoken personality and his willingness to challenge the status quo both on and off the court.
Oh, absolutely. He's not afraid to be himself, even if it ruffles some feathers.
And you know what? I think that kind of authenticity, that refusal to conform, is part of what makes him such a compelling figure. I agree. So even with all the controversies, you'd say he's had a positive impact on the sport.
I do. I think he's raised the bar for athleticism and mental toughness. And I think he's inspired a new generation of players with his relentless pursuit of excellence.
He's shown them that it's possible to achieve greatness on your own terms, even if it means going against the grain sometimes.
Right. He's not afraid to blaze his own trail.
So he's a complex character,
Yeah.
a walking contradiction in some ways,
Right.
but that's what makes him so fascinating. He's not your typical tennis star, and he's forced us to confront our own ideas about what it means to be a champion, a role model, a joke.
Exactly. And that's a conversation that I think is going to continue long after he hangs up his racket.
Okay. So as we start to wrap up this deep dive into Novak Djokovic's life and career, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I want them to appreciate the complexity of his story. The incredible highs and the controversial lows. I want them to think critically about how we define greatness and what values we prioritize in our sporting heroes. And I want them to remember that even the most dominant athletes are human, with flaws and vulnerabilities just like the rest of us.
Beautifully said. Now let's look ahead for a second and think about the future of tennis. With technology advancing so rapidly, do you think we'll see a player surpass Djokovic's achievements? Could we see AI-powered coaching or new training techniques create an even more dominant player?
It's definitely possible. I mean, technology is already playing a huge role in tennis. Players are using data analysis to fine-tune their game, and wearable sensors to track their performance. So, yeah, who knows what the future holds? What new innovations might emerge to push the limits of human potential on the court? It's exciting to think about.
Okay, so we've talked about his mental game, his flexibility, that insane return of serve. But what else makes Djokovic's playing style so unique? What else should we be looking out for when we watch him play?
One thing that really sets him apart is his versatility. He's not just a one-dimensional player. He's not just a baseline grinder or a serve and volleyer. he can do it all.
Really?
Yeah, he can grind out long rallies from the baseline, he's comfortable attacking the net, and he can hit winners from all over the court.
It's like he's got a tool for every situation.
Exactly. And he's just so efficient with his movement. He covers the court so well. He makes these unbelievable gets, that would leave most players lunging and scrambling.
I know what you mean. I've seen those clips of him sliding on hard courts.
Yeah.
Like he's playing on clay. It's crazy.
It really is. It's like he defies the laws of physics sometimes. And then there's his ability to dictate the pace of the game. He can slow things down with his deep, consistent ground strokes, or he can turn up the aggression with his powerful forehand.
He's like a conductor out there, orchestrating the whole match.
That's a great analogy. And of course, we can't forget about that mental toughness. He's known for staying calm under pressure, and just grinding out wins even when he's not playing his best.
Yeah, it's like he has this unshakable belief that he's going to find a way to win no matter what.
Exactly. And that kind of self-belief, that can be incredibly powerful, especially in a sport like tennis where so much of the game is mental.
So if you had to pick just one thing, what would you say is the absolute key to Djokovic's success?
I think his adaptability. He's always evolving his game, finding new ways to improve, and adjusting his strategy to counter his opponents. He never gets complacent, He's always looking for an edge.
He's not afraid to experiment, to take risks.
Right, and that's what makes him so dangerous. He's always one step ahead.
So to wrap things up, I think it's safe to say we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From Djokovic's childhood, growing up amidst conflict in Serbia, to his record-breaking achievements on the court. We've talked about his epic rivalries, his controversial moments, and his unconventional beliefs.
It's been a fascinating journey for sure.
So as we say goodbye for now, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember about Novak Djokovic?
I want them to remember him as a champion who really redefined what's possible in tennis. A player who combined incredible talent with an unyielding determination to be the best. But I also hope they'll remember him as a complex individual, a person who's not afraid to challenge norms and spark conversations, even if it means facing criticism.
He's definitely left his mark on the sport,
Yeah.
both on and off the court.
Absolutely. And his story is still being written, Who knows what incredible feats he'll achieve in the years to come.
That's the beauty of it all, isn't it? The future is wide open. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of Novak Djokovic. I hope you learned something new, and maybe even sparked some debates of your own. Till next time.